I'd love to hear about Dorothy's life plan.
Mm. That was a really complex life plan because Dorothy was struggling in so many different ways with her physical well-being, um, but had just so much vitality emotionally and in all of the various things she was really interested in and passionate about. So the people supporting her were very much there to kind of balance that, ensuring that her basic health needs were being met with medications and supporting her up and down. She lived at home in a two-story property, and her mobility was severely limited. So all of the complexity of supporting someone's physical health around that. Um, but she really wanted to stay living at home. And she absolutely loved Cliff Richard. So there was a moment where we actually managed to get a signed poster delivered from Cliff Richard, which was a highlight of our time with her. Um, and she absolutely loved her dog and dogs in general. So it was about getting a package of support in place that made sure that Dorothy's life was enriched with having dogs. Her own dog that was actually quite poorly. So actually our support package was very much around supporting the dog's health as well as Dorothy's health and making sure that she could go out into the community and be around dogs, and her own dog was safe and comfortable living at home with her still. Yeah, and just daily excursions out into her local community where she'd lived for 30, 40 years and knew people, but had before we come along been quite isolated and stuck at home, um, because yeah, people were thinking about care but not about life, right? So the care was being well tended for, but Dorothy wasn't really alive anymore. She was a shell of herself. So yeah, thinking about, okay, yes, we can tend to these few tasks, these few care oriented activities, but what about animals? What about spirituality? What about the arts and music? And what does that look like? Yes, definitely in her home, but outside the home too, because we're social creatures.
Right, all the stuff that makes our lives worth living.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
this thing, I think, for me, that we kind of can put people who are older into a different way of thinking than
Yeah.
for ourselves. And like, if you take all that stuff that you just mentioned away from me,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna withdraw.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop wanting to engage. I'm gonna become apathetic,
Yeah.
um, and then we know what happens in terms of inflammation in the body and all the health risks that are
Yeah.
tied up with it.
And I think we naturally, day to day, all of us, take a sort of goal oriented approach to the things that we want to do in our lives, but we just don't think about it in those ways. Like you can sort of uh, concrete that by thinking about like the couch to 5K sort of approach to things, but we can do that in our life plans for people. We can't take Dorothy to a Cliff Richard concert tomorrow because she hasn't left the house in 2 years, but we could take her to one in 2 years time and think about, right, if that's the goal and if that's like an absolute icing on the cake of life for her, what can we do between now and then that slowly gets her reacclimatized to being out, seeing her friends, going out in a wheelchair, and eventually kind of having that amazing artistic experience and celebrity experience as well. Yeah.
What would you say to a family member who's kind of maybe got their mum in a similar situation
Yeah.
as Dorothy, and they're listening to you going, "I'll come on a Cliff Richard concert."
Yeah.
What that's not even what we're thinking about. You know, it's so far away from something that I could ever see my mum
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I get it. Like it's not an easy thing, and it's a job, right? So we're here to make sure that happens because that's what we do. And I think one of the most consistent pieces of feedback we get is that this support package, this kind of life plan, enables family members to go back to being family members a lot of the time, instead of being care managers and care coordinators by proxy, which can feel really thankless, especially if you've got your own family and your own sort of life to try and lead. Um, and I think it's just about having that sort of, I guess, a little bit of empathy and spark back into, yes, if I myself can imagine, like you were saying earlier, if I can imagine how sad it would be and to to be deprived of that sense of lack of purpose, um, you know, yes, I can get up in the morning, but what am I getting up for? Then it's absolutely no different whether you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, right? Like we all need that sense of spark and joy and a smile in our day. And while the basic things might need to be tended to, and often that does boil down to physical health issues, once you've got those sorted, which should be very fast because they're easy to grasp and there are diagnoses for things like that, then the rest of it is what gives life meaning. And it's not just about, well, we say all the time, don't we? It's not just about surviving; it's about thriving. Yeah.